Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of our brand new series or season for empowerED entitled What We Have Learned. What we have learned is a series of podcasts again that will go back to what things that we have really learned or, experienced. We are more than a year into the pandemic, and I'm simply going back to guests that we were able to bring in our podcast for the past few months, and even new guests who will be enlightening us and helping us make sense of how far we have been through with education at this time of the pandemic. For this episode, I am proud to welcome um, one of our guests in season six. By the way, just for the record, season six had the most episodes yet for our podcast because the pandemic has really hit us hard and we had a lot to talk about, and we are continuing. So if you imagine season six and season seven, it's basically just one thread of narratives about the pandemic and education. So our guest for today is our certified life coach, a teacher who has been guiding also the youth, of course, in her school, and even she's been also around webinars and workshops in the country, helping teachers, school leaders, and even parents make sense or think of how they can support the children, the youth at this time of the pandemic. Our topic for today is the youth of the pandemic, sinking or swimming, 1 year into or more than a year into the pandemic. So welcome, life coach Christine or Tin Alcala.
Hello, good afternoon to your listeners and viewers, and nice to be back here.
Yes, and it's been a year, Tin, and in some we have been in contact, of course, through other platforms or even through other opportunities, especially in terms of education conferences and webinars. Then the first question really is, what have we learned about the youth, the state of SEL or social emotional learning, and how are they coping with the pandemic a year into this very unfortunate part of our history?
Yeah, very interesting questions, no, a question, Jim. And I myself had to reflect and go back to the chats I had with my students, the interactions I made with the teachers, no, when I with the webinars I conducted or facilitated, and really listen in, no, how the students are adjusting or how they adjusted in this pandemic. Um, we saw two kinds of response from the students. Some really struggled, some really thrived in this setup. But what was striking is that I realized that our students uh, also saw the opportunity to really value their own well-being, their mental health. So parang this pandemic pushed them to actually see that aspect of their lives. Actually, if we will be technical about it, when we say mental health, it's the totality, our totality, the way we think, the way we behave, and the way we feel, no? So, and the way we handle stresses in life, our resilience, our everything. So parang it's going to be really impossible, no, to have healthy responses if you are not well mentally. So that's what I realized, no, especially the students under my care, no, um even the young ones, no, parang I very common that I've heard from the students, no, they told me, parang, Teacher Tin, this pandemic has made me reflect on my own life even the young ones, as in grade 4, grade 5. And nice to hear that from them. And some of them would even use the word introspection. This pandemic gave them the chance to do introspection. So, and this pandemic parang gave them a chance to really check on themselves, be on their own, as in a lot of realization. So talaga very amazing how this crisis parang made them realize something, and made them parang respond in a positive way also, no? So that's just one thing, no? And what's nice about thinking about or being mindful about their well-being is that they learned in the process that self-care is very important. Again, when you talk to adults, parang it's a given, you know, you have to do self-care and all. But when you hear it from students, little students and students in the high school level, parang yeah, you're actually hitting it right. We have to do self-care. You have, and no one will do that for you but yourself, diba? So that's very interesting, no? So, and what's one thing good also is they realize how resilient they can be, no? Oh, of course, some talaga. Sabi ko nga, two ways of responding to this crisis. But some realize that, teacher Tin, I was able to make it. I was able to just the recalling the last group session I had with a student. I only had one question, and that question was, how does finishing strong look like for you this year? And some actually told me, Teacher Tin, are we still after finishing strong or just finishing it? So parang, and they liken it to a parang running in a racetrack, no? Parang, are we supposed to always parang have that goal to be the first in the finish line, or just see ourselves get to the finish line? So talaga they present a different the different kinds of perspective, no, in terms of their experience in this pandemic, in terms of their well-being, no, and during this time. So there. So and I'm also happy that slowly, I think, students and teachers, adults actually, are more open to seeking help. No, they recognize that. So that's parang moving towards parang destigmatizing the idea of seeking help when you want to work on your well-being, or you want to work on your mental health.
And I'm happy to note that, in the end, the responses that you've mentioned, I think they're very normal, right? You have the opposite, responses. And just to be honest, I'm so happy to hear that even the young kids are very much aware of this. If there's one thing that we could really point out right now is we've learned to care for ourselves, not just for the adults, but even allowing the children to realize that more than even the academic requirements that they have right now, their own well-being, their whole well-being matters more than ever. And I love your kid saying that, I think we have come to realize that the journey itself, more than the end of the journey, the process
Yeah.
of
Oo.
the journey itself, sometimes or might be even more important as of this time, because we don't get to finish the race as first honors or whatever. I don't think that's the main goal right now, but because we have learned a lot, so much about ourselves. I for one, this is an honest confession, quote and unquote, but I had my own counseling sessions for the first time in my in my well, I had
Yeah.
because I was required to have it before in college or whatever. Part of my guidance counseling, in school. But right now, as an adult, it's like after 10 years, I went back to counseling because I wasn't sure. For the first time, I was not sure about what's happening, and I'm an adult. How much
Mm.
more do the students have, to face this kind of challenges? But I'm happy then that you've mentioned how we have come to realize, the children have come to realize how resilient they can be. I can imagine that it's not always, sunshine and rainbow for them. We all have episodes, but having that kind of recognition that in the end we're just happy that we are going through it together, or maybe with the help of you, for example, as a life coach or teacher of their parents, everything's worth it. Yeah.
Actually, that's the thing, no, Jim. I also agree with you. It's not an automatic process that they parang instantly they recognize na, oh, I can be resilient. All these have to come with the struggles along the way. And because we have allowed them to struggle, or they didn't have a choice, they didn't have a choice, they realize that, wait, who's gonna help me? Of course, you have the adults around you. You have your life coaches, you have your parents, and all. You have your teachers. But at the end of the day, it's really your commitment to taking care of yourself. So
Yeah.
it is not without the struggles, but primarily the presence of the crisis or the difficult times made them realize that. So yeah, very striking revelation, from the students.
Then the question, it does not have to reflect your school, but I know that you have been in contact with schools, for professional development, especially about guiding students in terms of social emotional learning, SEL, or maybe even in contact with parent groups. This is a question, and we can speculate much about it, but it's really more of our concern before schools were too much focused on the academic side, bridging what's missing right now. And then leaving behind, it was a late recognition, right? That, SEL matters more than ever right now. But we were so hung up with academics. So then right now, is it still the same with schools?
You know what I've realized is that the desire to focus on the well-being of the student is very strong. It's just that it's not, but it requires a lot of consciousness or awareness that we always have to shift perspective. Because we've been accustomed to talking about schools. Syempre, when you talk about schools, you talk about academics, you talk about grades, you talk about requirements and all. But it's just that we are in this situation we're in. We are challenged to see it in a different perspective this time. But again, it's not an automatic thought. So we have to always, whenever we get the chance to see that this is an opportunity to teach students about their emotions, about how to deal with difficult emotions, then we pick it up. Pero it requires practice. It requires that awareness, that consciousness, and that commitment, no, and that commitment. Whoever it is that is facing the children, no, parang will have that, will have that what do you call that? That courage to say, okay, I have to set aside content first, but really focus on the needs at this point, the emotional needs at this point. I am not saying that, yeah, content should come secondary and all. No, it's not that. But really, that awareness when we have to address a problem. No, again, I am saying I have seen the desire. I have seen the 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 recognition that yes, we need this. We need to see it that way. But of course, teachers also need support. No, teachers also need to have those. I don't want to call it training or elbow, but sessions wherein they will also be in tune with their own emotions, because mostly it's about that, no, you being aware of your own disposition, being aware of your own struggles also, and parang you're able to empathize with other kids if you're also tending to your own emotions and your needs, right? So there.
So Ted, what I'm getting is that it's not an overnight process, right? But what we are happy about again is that we have recognized that SEL matters, and therefore, I think I don't know if this is a good push or good idea, but I think it really depends on the culture, really, right? The existing culture of the school. I do understand that there are schools who might who really pushes academic excellence, right?
Yeah,
Because it's part of who they are. It's part
it's the
of
value, one of the values of the school, no?
and right now, because it's so difficult, it's not that it's difficult to achieve academic excellence, we can still do that, but the situation that we have right now makes it more challenging for students, right? It's making the playing field uneven, and then we come to realize that, hey, maybe there's a part in us that we need to shift in terms of perspective, like what you have said. Maybe this is the high time also to put forward a different facet of our school culture that brings SEL, that brings well-being at the forefront also. So we might not have, I don't know, I don't have a concrete data, but when I speak to school leaders right now, especially right now because we're preparing for the next school year, that is to come again, that is to come in the coming months. The big question sometimes when we ask is how much have we done for our students to support
Mm,
them,
mm,
because it looks like that the pandemic is not going away yet.
yeah.
So that's the usual question that they have.
You know what, Jim? I can understand. No, I can understand the push for academic excellence, but there have been studies. No, there have been studies that the learning gaps will really be there because of what's happening now. So, how open are we to put ourselves in that perspective? That okay, what however we push for academic excellence, or how we did things before when we were still in the physical setup, it's not going to happen now. So and we have to realize that when the well-being is not in a good condition, especially when kids are so stressed out already, these are factors, big factors to consider, no, when learning. When you're stressed out already, you won't be able to absorb a lot of information anymore. You will be responding differently, so it's going to be counterproductive. So um, I agree with you. It's high time to um, pay attention to the well-being first, especially now that we are given this kind of situation wherein we really have to prioritize first the well-being of students and set aside first whatever it is that we're pushing academically, because it has been proven, no, it has been proven that this is going to the crisis will really affect the academic standing, or the whatever it is that happens there in our brain because of what we have right now.
Right then, two things. Number one, I've so much agree with you, right? With There are a lot of studies that says if students do not feel a sense of belonging, do not have positive relationship among their teach or with their teacher and their classmates, it will be difficult for them. That's a major factor, and that's there's a lot of study that says those kinds of things, and we recognize them now. Second, the second part really is, I think it really boils down also into how open we are, right? Because I've read also studies that says here's the thing that I'm very scared of right now. There are studies that says or that are predicting that maybe what schools or teachers will do is to catch up with what have been missed out in terms of learning, and that will cause much stress again for the learners, for the kids, because it's as if they are being pushed to run after to chase what they have missed. And of
Yeah.
course, the transition to the I don't know what kind of normal we will have, because we've been using new normal, and yet we're having a different kind of new normal every month or every year. I just fear how much again we will be putting so much stress, undue stress, to our kids, because we think that we need to catch up immediately with what have been missed. I hope that that's something. Actually, that's one topic that I have in my episode, in one of the future episodes. But very interesting. I'm just very scared for that part. Then moving on,
Mm.
uh, a few hurdles. What are those still challenges that you recognize or see as we continue with different modes of distance learning at this time of the pandemic in terms of well-being?
Number one is mindset. Okay, how we see things. So that's a very difficult, that's a very difficult thing to address, no, especially when we are stuck with uh how we did things before. So any opportunity that you see that you can attend to the needs of the kids, no, non-academic needs, take that take that opportunity. um Prioritize relationship. Now, I can understand, Jim, I can understand really where some of the teachers are coming from, no, when they say, uh, but what will be the basis of the grade if we don't require the students? Okay,
Or or they need to cover the whole curriculum because they have to report
that's
to the department.
true. That's
Oh well.
true. So, well, that's one hurdle also. How open are the school administrators to actually adjust also, or adjust their curriculum? No, so it's a systemic approach actually. The teachers cannot just move based from the needs they see in the classroom, because definitely it has to be discussed with the school administrators, and they need support, no. So what if a teacher sees the need in the classroom, but then again the higher ups are pressuring the teachers to, but these are your main responsibilities, blah blah blah. But so they also need support, no, from their higher ups. So that's going to be one hurdle also, no. But I do hope that with all the cases that have been reported about students really struggling with anxiety, depression, and stress, parang it's high time to talk about that as an institution. Ako, I'm just so blessed to be in a very progressive setup wherein things can easily be adjusted, and the word accommodation is really a common thing, no. In the place where I work, no. So all these things, how open are we to give accommodations without seeing it as being too lenient, but according to the needs, based on the needs. For example, there are really cases wherein it's clinical already. Clinical depression, or has been the kid has been diagnosed with anxiety. All these things, the things that you require from them, from school, or the things that they have to finish for school, will be something. It's going to be counterproductive to still require them to do all those things uh, on a given deadline. Because when it's clinical already, you really have to give them accommodation. You really have to wait for the readiness of the kid, Especially that there are some psychiatrists and psychologists who will not recommend some kids to stop schooling just because they have the condition, because it's not going to help them either. So where do we strike the balance? So really, discernment from the teachers, from the institution, is needed at this point to really attend to the unique needs of the students.
Yeah. So more than a year into the pandemic, we still go with our battle cry, Maslow before Bloom. We're happy to note that some schools are doing Maslow and Bloom. So some schools, we need to recognize there are also schools who were able to figure out, adjust things so that they both prioritize, they both give out the message, like what you've said, accommodate the well-being of the student, but still the same thing, still doing the same thing, like providing them with academic opportunities to help them, you know, in a
Be
holistic,
productive. Yeah,
yeah,
still be productive.
yeah. So yeah, I think that's it for now. Then thank you so much. Definitely, things have changed. We have learned a lot from the first year, the first months of our experience in supporting the well-being of the students right now. And I am grateful that you have been with us again to shed light. Um, Maybe in the next season we will have you again. Hopefully, when the pandemic ends and we could have another episode on what we have learned post-pandemic. Hopefully,
I'm
yeah,
sure there's going to be a lot to talk about there.
yes. So, Tin, thank you so much. Thank you so much. And we hope that you are safe. And to our listeners, thank you again for being with us. And we will see you in the next episode. Bye, everyone. Bye, Tin.
Bye.